All right, folks, 27-22. I am joined by the Irishman Colin, who's not actually in Ireland,
No, I'm actually in Switzerland.
in
Yeah, yeah.
Switzerland, man. Eating all the chocolate, I'm sure. No.
Uh,
Are you guarding
yeah,
cash? What is that?
Swiss beer.
Was ist das? Yeah? Yeah.
Feldschlösschen, which is it's number one Swiss beer. It's pretty
How,
good.
how
Pretty good.
does Swiss beer compared to Irish beer?
Um, yeah. Well, I don't drink Guinness over here. My golden rule is wherever I go, drink what the locals drink, and that's going to be pretty safe. So yeah, it's pretty good.
As we start our chat, I'm just getting blown up by all the Irish kids that follow me. It's like close battle, but we beat those English bastards. And I was just like, I called it obviously 27-22. I think the scoreline not really indicative of really definitely a game of two halves
Yeah,
to
yeah.
say the least. The first half, Ireland just not really getting anything going. I mean, going in the 20 within the 22 five times and getting nothing to show for it.
Yeah.
Um, early, Mac Hansen starts out with a bang, chases down the kick, and then 4 minutes later, he's hobbling off the field. We're thinking it's like a knee injury of some kind. Apparently,
Yeah.
HIA. Oddly enough,
It was strange. Like they assumed it, I think everybody assumed it was HIA, but I think I heard the commentator saying that it was like a blood injury that they just needed to stop the flow of blood basically, and then he was kind of okay, So
it was so weird seeing him on the field without the scrum cap on because he's just kind of like notorious for that scrum cap. And the English attack early, I mean, like we're talking like the first 10 minutes of this game, it was nothing but English attack. Ollie Lawrence breaks through at the 8th minute. Slade chips it to Murley out left, and then it's 7-0, 8 minutes into this thing, and we're just kind of like, you as an Irish fan kind of being like, okay, we look rusty, but we look a lot rustier than I thought we probably would at this point.
Yeah, like I mean, coming off the back of a very mixed autumn series, like we certainly, we got beat by New Zealand, but like we felt, it wasn't like New Zealand were amazing that night. We were actually just full of errors, and it was it's not to say they didn't deserve it, but you still walk away thinking, okay, Ireland, they're not really firing on all cylinders here. Yeah, like I mean, I text you like straight away. It's a good start from England. That was kind of, it's a good start, but it's only a start, and like, yeah, you're right. The first half was pretty bad. Lots of errors. They seem to be kind of overrunning their lines a little bit, or the passes were just not quite on time. And while they actually did look like they could make breaks, they just weren't really executing. And that's like every now and again you get that with Ireland. They'll go through a period of a few games where things are maybe changing, the defense is changing, there's some new patterns being put in, and guys are just, it just takes them a little while to get used to it. So yeah, that's kind of it. I mean, England put Ireland under a lot of pressure as well, so you got to give it to them. So
Well, we'd get down deep in the end. Ireland would make multiple attacks, and they kept going offside. Ben O'Keefe, the Kiwi ref, I felt like he did a good job for the most part of the game.
yeah,
Takes Maro Itoje to the side and said, look, this offside crap, you've got to stop. If not, somebody's getting carded. And we get into the 12th minute, a penalty on England. Pendergrass goes for the corner, and set piece play was something that, especially at line out, Ireland struggled massively,
yeah,
especially in the Autumn Nations Tour. They struggled massively at line out time. And you've got proper hookers. It's not like you don't have the guys. It just wasn't clicking.
yeah.
We saw that in the first scrum of the match. The very first scrum, 12 minutes into this game, or it was 11 minutes into this game, first scrum to Ireland, and the Irish scrum just collapsed. And you're just like, okay, the set piece play. We need to concentrate on that, guys. We go through all of that. At the 15th minute, Kelleher off the tap and go. You think that it goes across. They go back to the TMO. Ben O'Keefe goes up to it and says that bit of obstruction on Itoje. It looked like somebody had his leg or something like that. So they call it off. It's still 7-0, 15 minutes into this. And like I said, it was a lot of missed opportunities in that first half. Hansen comes back on a couple of minutes later. That's when we find out it was just something minor, that he was going to be back. Couple of minutes later, on the attack again, and sure enough, Ben O'Keefe holds to his word. Out comes the card. Off goes Marcus Smith for 10 minutes. And
Yeah.
you think that this is kind of maybe a time to shift it. You go to the Pendergrass once again, kicks to the corner. Ireland line out. They commit an obstruction penalty right at the try line. They had so many penalties at the try line today. Like, it was unreal. 31st minute, another line out. The line out moves back. Like, we go back 15 meters after a line out. We're supposed to be moving. And I mean, you got to hand it to England. Their defense was very good today. But a couple of minutes later, after I had messaged you about what a defensive liability James Lowe is because they kept attacking his side, he finally gets a break, breaks two defenders, gets it out to Gibson Park. And I mean, we saw this multiple times in the game. Obviously, Gibson Park getting man of the match to me, despite my statements about his defensive liability. I thought James Lowe, 3 assists on tries. He was amazing. Once he got his feet under him, he was amazing.
One of the things, just to come in on that, like one of the things for me, like, you know, and I do take your point, and I've made this point like years ago. Like, he does, you know, his defense is not as, like, it's not perfect. You know what I mean? It really isn't. You know, he has off days and you know, he has good days. But one thing you always get with him is you always get fight. You always get serious fight with him. You know, like if his teammates, you saw it on 2 or 3 occasions. England they were looking to really
it's in the mix. It's in the mix. Yeah, like he will shove. He will grab. And he will shove.
Yeah,
like, and you need that. Obviously, go into half. Marcus Smith kicks a penalty at the 40th minute. 10-5. Pendergrass, some kicking issues. I'd already made this statement over on TikTok. He's got to toughen up. He's just not. I see him getting shoved a lot, especially after plays. He'll get shoved a lot, and it's like, I know he's a kid. I think he's is he like 20, 22 years old? Maybe 22, 23, maybe?
21.
He's 21. I know toughness comes with time, but he's going to have to toughen up. You know, you get a guy like Marcus Smith who's undersized. That guy's used to getting thrashed around. And Pendergrass is not undersized. He's actually a fairly tall kid, but you could just tell he's a baby face. I mean, we're both old enough to be his dad. And you kind of feel like maybe he needs to get some face smashes in just so he knows, okay, I can still play with a busted face and whatever. But overall, missed 2 conversions. I'm not going to hang the kid for it because he's young, and I mean, he doesn't even have 10 caps.
No, Jesus, no, he really doesn't. You know, and I heard, you know, some of the points were being made. Because it's been this huge to and fro between him and Crowley, and realistically, I think it's actually always going to be both. It's never going to be just one guy.
You don't think you're going to end up with like that's the whole thing, especially with these kids. They don't understand. Like, Sexton was a generational thing.
Yeah.
Like, he was all you needed. He was the general on that team. He ran the team.
Yeah, 100%.
And you're not going to replace that overnight. That's going to be something that takes 8 years to replace. And obviously he had his issues. He did end up converting a few of his kicks, but the second half comes out. First 10, 15 minutes are kind of the same, just back and forth, nothing really happening. And then in the last 20, it's like somebody turned the volume on, or turned the knob for the Irish, and they came out and they did what we know they can do.
Yeah.
Which is play with confidence, play with swagger, play with style. And it's something that I think kids don't understand, is that you used to not have that. Now you have that ability.
there's certain things that people see now that really should amaze you. We saw a hooker throw a 20 odd yard pass into the winger, run a trail line, receive it back, and finish and hammered the ball into the ground to finish. Like, it was like that. That doesn't happen. That's very, the last time I've seen like a hooker who really had that kind of dynamism. I mean, there's a guy called Keith Wood. Some people here might know
Yes,
who he
we
is.
all know who Keith. Well, anybody over probably the age of 35 probably remembers that name.
Yeah,
And that's kind of the thing that, like, if I have a conversation with anybody, like especially younger Irish fans, it's like, look, there's good teams and there's great teams. And they're like, "Oh, well, you're a Springbok fan." And I'm like, "Yes, the difference between a good team and a great team is a great team can adapt and overcome."
mm,
That two-test series last year in South Africa proved that Ireland can adapt.
yeah,
That second game, you spanked the toughest team on the planet. You spanked them like a small child.
mm, yeah,
You came out, you socked them in the nose and said, "Let's go," and you got the win. And that's what I think separates Ireland from England, in my opinion. Ireland
yeah.
can overcome, can change. England fell apart. Yes, they got the 2 consolation tries in the last 5 minutes, but, like, the game was already
Yeah,
over at that point.
finished. Yeah.
Like,
So
they
the
were
bonus point
cooked.
try was the end of the game for Ireland. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Like, there's multi dimensions this to Ireland's play. Whereas if you look at England, they were going to try to be a nuisance at breakdown with basically 2 sevens on the field, the
Yeah,
Curry brothers.
yeah, yeah.
2 groundhogs, and they were going to, try to interfere at every ruck and, be really good at what they're good at, which is their set piece, and England are traditionally a fantastic scrummaging team, and their line out is usually pretty good as well. So that's what they were going to do, but they didn't really offer anything else. And you saw it when it got put up to them when the play started to be dictated by Ireland. They didn't really have an answer, and it went on for about 20-25 minutes there, where Ireland were just in control of the game, and
Yeah.
that was it,
And
and
you saw it, the Bundy Aki try especially, you just saw, like, he was hyped. Like, he got that ball. He could have had 5 guys in front of him. He was not. He was gonna bulldoze his way in, and then you saw after the try, just the attitude on the field. To me, that was kind of the catalyst. When he got that try, the attitude on the field changed immediately. Like,
yeah,
he was letting them know, we got this, guys. Just don't give up. Just keep following, trusting the process. And um, I know it's a bit odd because you don't have your head coach right now. You have your interim coach for the moment with Andy Farrell getting ready to do
the Lions, yeah,
the slaughter of Australia. I'm sorry. I don't give Australia an ice cube chance in hell for that. I think they're going to get killed, man. But just a personal opinion. That's just it's not because I hate Australia. It's just I don't think they're there. But um,
it's a big
obviously, things that need to be improved on. Obviously, these issues with handling errors early in the game. I just didn't see, and I knew it was rusty. And this is why I had brought up in another TikTok video about how, like, I wish that you guys all these Six Nations teams would get a warm up match.
yeah. Like, I mean, the schedule is so packed. Like, it really is so packed with URC, and then you have the the Champions Cup as well, and but it I suppose, like, there's one side of it is rustiness, right? But, like, if you look back traditionally at Ireland England games, the last number, he's like, they beat us last year, but, like, if you look at even the ones that we've won, and we've won quite a lot recently, they're always dirty, slow, kind of,
It's
very.
trench warfare.
It's,
England is
that's
always trench
exactly it.
warfare.
It's trench warfare, 100%.
Yeah.
And the English, like, they like it like that, but Ireland don't like it like that, but they have to go there, and that's it, because England are pretty good at what they do, they're pretty good at spoiling things, and they're very good at set piece. So, you have to give it to them. But
Do you think you discussed this with having like Jock Nienaber on the coaching staff at Leinster?
yeah,
Do you think the knock on effect of having South African club teams playing Irish teams pretty much year round now? Do you think that are you seeing a positive effect in that? Because I certainly am.
it's the best thing that's happened to us in the last couple of years, because I can tell you for a fact we wouldn't have been able to draw that series in South Africa had we not have had successful tours to South Africa with our club team. So, if we hadn't have been able to win a few games in South Africa, it just wouldn't have happened. Like, it's, I know, like, when you go down there with a club, and the stadiums aren't really full, and it's a big difference playing the Springboks, but at the
Yeah.
same time, you're going to altitude, so you're getting used to altitude. You're in a camp basically for a couple of weeks, so you have to really get used to that. So, like, plus also, the physicality, the way that they play, and they make no apologies for it. It's just like, we're going to run through you. We're actually going to go through you. Like, we're not going to go around you. We're going to go straight at you and over you. And that's what South African teams bring. And you don't really get it from anyone else. Do you know what I mean? You really don't.
You say that with the knock-on effect of South African teams. For me, being a South Africa fan and growing up on Southern Hemisphere rugby, I get to see diversity. Okay, growing up, there's so many differences between the northern and southern hemisphere as far as rugby styles, as far as the way the game goes. I mean, even Super Rugby versus URC. I mean, I'm having to get up at 2 in the morning to watch games, 11:30 p.m. at night to watch games from New Zealand. With the URC, I don't have to do that. Thankfully, they're Saturday morning or Friday afternoon games predominantly, but it's the diversity in the style because the Kiwi teams were all pretty much different variations of what the All Blacks were. Some were a little bit more better defense, some were a bit of with the URC, you do get like your ideal of what the Crusaders were in Leinster, which is basically like an all-star team. But then you get a little something different. And it's not just the Irish teams, it's the Scottish teams, it's the Welsh teams, it's the Italian teams. And I feel like it diversifies everyone's play style because people in the Southern Hemisphere aren't used to Northern Hemisphere style rugby, and people in the Northern Hemisphere aren't used to Southern Hemisphere style rugby. And I feel like it's been the best benefit for both, especially for Ireland and South Africa. We get we get the best of each hemisphere against each other. And obviously financially it's done well for the URC as well with the television contracts in South Africa being so big. Like that, people keep saying we should go back to Super. I don't want to go back to Super Rugby. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't want to. I'm happy.
Super Rugby's dead.
I'm happy with the URC. So I guess a big difference for me being Southern Hemisphere is everything was compartmentalized there. You had Super Rugby, you had mid-year internationals, you had Rugby Championship, end of season tour. That's not what the Northern Hemisphere does. You run everything at the same time. You have URC, Champions Cup, Six Nations. You run everything compact, and I think it's cool. It is a bit overwhelming to me as a rugby fan because it's a lot of rugby to be watching at one time.
Yeah.
Because if you're doing Champions Cup, you've got to follow Premiership, France, everything. For me, it was like everything was in Super Rugby, Currie Cup, NPC, Rugby Championship. That was it. And I think that's kind of a bit of the Achilles heel too. I think you mash everything together a little too much, but that's just because that's not what I grew up with. So it just seems odd to me.
It's very disorganized at the moment, actually. Like, they really haven't worked it out like fully yet. I mean, it's really hard to kind of get all of the stakeholders around the table and kind of get them to agree on something.
A universal calendar, yeah, they don't seem to be too keen on it.
I mean, even with the European Cup, I can go way back, like, but every year there was always complaints from, the English are giving out about the European Cup now. They don't want to send. They're playing too many games, or the French are threatening to pull out of the European Cup, and you're kind of like, oh Jesus, But because for them, like they play, I think they play 6 or 7 more games a season
Yeah,
than
than everyone
us.
else. Yeah.
Yeah, and they don't stop for anything. Like they
Yeah.
never stop.
Yeah, I think they're still playing this weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, they
Um,
don't. So that's crazy.
I still think another really good option for it, for me at least personally, is that we save the South African Derby games for this time because we're not losing any players in the Six Nations for South African sides.
Mhm.
That way, maybe you get more off bye weeks, that kind of thing, but we save all our Derby games for these weekends. Now, I know why they don't do that because they don't want the television competition. They don't want
Yeah,
to have to compete against Six Nations because regardless of what South Africans say, they do watch the Six Nations. They don't, get together like they do for the Rugby Championship, but they do watch it. It is on TV there. So, um, with that being said, did you have a man of the match? Did you agree that it was Gibson Park, or did you
I
disagree?
was going I was going to give it to James Lowe myself. I just there was a number of times in that game, where Ireland needed to they really needed to be more, just didn't need to take any shit from the English, and the English really tried to bully the Irish, and like you mentioned early on, the young fly half got pushed around a little bit, and for me that's the criticism there isn't him, it's where's his captain? His captain should be, if you touch my fly half, I'm going to be on top of you like a rash, and you won't do it a second time.
Yeah,
And
Doris isn't a small guy either.
he's
He-
not, but I thought he could have done a little bit better to look after
yeah, as
his
young
man.
guy, as young man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, that being said, we had two other games already, obviously, this week. I had predicted the wooden spoon for Wales. I don't know if you did. Do you predict it now after what you saw against France yesterday?
Yeah, like Welsh rugby it, I don't know what to say about Welsh rugby. Like we've been watching it. It's like a slow car crash. We've been watching it for a number of years now, and it's only going one direction. And
It's
it's
bad.
not.
It's
It's really really bad. Like I mean, they could go out of exit. Like I don't feel, you
I
know,
don't I don't see him getting a win because if you look at their end of year tour or their end of year games, they're playing us, they're playing New Zealand. Yeah,
no
they're
God.
yeah, it's gonna be bad. Like I could see them going winless this year. And the sad part is I don't even blame Warren Gatland for it. I think
No.
Welsh rugby is just in a place where I mean, they had Alan Wynne Jones for all these years. They had all these big cat players. Those guys
Yeah.
retired, and they didn't really have anybody to really come in and step up. And it's really sad. I don't know if you saw. Was it Adam Beard was on the bench yesterday for that Wales? Was that Beard or was that Wynne Jones that was on the bench? Big fat guy with the beard and the long hair. Was that Adam Beard?
I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah. There was a point where the camera cut to him and he just looked like he had I think they brought him in because they thought, "Oh, maybe he'll help these guys." He's a veteran.
Yeah.
He looked broken. He was on the bench just like, "What happened?" Like,
Yeah.
and I felt bad for him because he was there for so much success and now the team is
Mhm.
just so yes, I think Wales does not win a single game in this tournament.
Yeah.
I think Ireland gets one win, or not Ireland, Italy. They get one win. I think they beat Wales. I think they might be trouble for England a bit, but they're still not really there yet either. Um,
Yeah, Italy are kind of they're almost like a joker in the pack. Like
you
you
never
can
know.
go, yeah, you never know. You can go 20 points up on them, and then they might come back. They might come back like one game out of five. They might come back. You know what I mean? If it's a kind of a somewhat even playing field, but yeah, I mean, like Wales for me, like it's just it's such a huge talking point. But like I've seen so many things in Welsh rugby in the last couple of years that have just shocked me. Like I mean, I remember there was a guy Justin Tipperick, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
he retired with 97 caps, right? And he 97 caps. Nobody retires with 97 caps. Anyway, like you're going to keep going to get that 100, and he just said, "Screw this, I'm out of here." Or like
Yeah,
himself with Wyn Jones, they quit at the same time, and it was like, it's just that's so bad.
it's like for me, the big source of a lot of people that came to my page was my comments on Luis Rees-Zammit. Okay,
Oh yeah,
was he world class as a winger?
not
I
quite
feel
yet.
like I
No.
feel like the trajectory he was going on was that way.
Mm,
He could have been one of these Welsh wingers that gets 60, 70 caps. Him leaving to try and play in the NFL,
yeah,
I'll be surprised if he ever gets capped again for Wales. I really will. Um, I think a lot of the reason he left was kind of for the same reason guys like Tuperik quit.
yeah.
I mean, at one point, they almost went on strike, I think, at one
What
point.
they did, they went on strike. Yeah,
Yeah,
that,
and it's like, I remember Gatland doing the 2017 British and Irish Lions tour. I was at that game in Wellington when Sonny Bill Williams got the red card. I was at that game freezing my ass off in the rain and being like, man, I love Warren Gatland. He did so much for Welsh rugby. And then it was time for him to go. So they brought in Wayne Pivac. Gats comes back to New Zealand with the Chiefs, my team in New Zealand. And Pivac just like like it was like he walked into just a storm. And they were like, okay, well, we need Gats back. And Gats walked in and was like, well, looks like the bull already run rough in the China shop here. I guess I can kind of try to start straightening up a bit, but there's not really much he can do because the damage was already done at that point. And
yeah. Like, I'm not sure if it was a mistake. It's really hard to kind of to speak about it, but they folded a couple of professional franchises or they amalgamated them in Wales like
yeah,
a number of years ago, and it looks like the talk is always that they just going to do that again, and try to consolidate with, you know, uh, you know, just having like three teams or two teams. I'm not exactly sure, but like it's just really bad. Like I don't, it's a very similar like size to Ireland. So like we only have four professional teams, yet somehow we're able to organize our way to having, you know,
four somewhat competitive, two very competitive sides and two somewhat
yeah,
competitive sides. Yeah. And Wales
and
can't manage to do any, basically.
any of it, yeah, and it's not like I don't really see like they have a fantastic stadium. Like that's one thing that I would say. Like if Ireland had that stadium, like the Viva isn't great. It really isn't great. It's not
Really.
a great show if you turn up. Like unless you're playing, South Africa or the All Blacks, and it's going to be red hot.
What's wrong? What do you think is wrong with Aviva Stadium? Is it just not built correctly, or is it just not?
Well, for the organization to make money, there isn't enough seats in it. First of all, so
Oh,
that's
It's not big
it's
enough.
not big enough. No, no, it isn't.
Wow.
And you can see at one of the end goal lines, there's, the outside wall of the stadium is it. It should be a stand. There was limitations when they built it, but at the same time, besides that, you have like atmosphere. So the atmosphere isn't great in the Aviva. But
Mhm.
the point I was making is when you have the Millennium Stadium, like that's an amazing stadium. That's one of the
It's
best stadiums.
massive. Yeah, it's massive. Yeah.
It's unreal. So you should be able to make a lot of money out of that stadium. Is my point. And why, if we're all playing the same amount of games and drawing our money from the same source, which is the Six Nations and various kind of autumn tests and things like that, why is it Wales can't uh, make a better fist of it than Ireland? I mean, we only have a 40 odd thousand seater stadium. It's not. It really isn't good enough, like for this team. But
It's odd because I've brought up stadiums many times. Obviously, living in America, stadiums here are. I mean, heck, the high school stadium in the town I live in seats 12,000. It's a high school stadium. Okay, we have a small college stadium that seats 37,000. That's small. I mean, we've got two stadiums in Dallas Fort Worth that seat over 100,000. Over
mhm.
100,000. We've got a college stadium that seats 65,000. We have it, but it's America. It's 330 million people, so I can't compare it to something like Ireland. But
Mm.
like you do have Croke Park, which I've seen a few tests that they've done there, games that they've played there, and I mean that's 92,000. I think is 82,000. I think is capacity there.
82, yeah.
And I'm like, "Why don't you play more games there?" And then I've had Irish people explain, "Well, because that's a GAA stadium. That's not a rugby stadium." I'm like, "I don't give a damn. If you can fill that thing up, that's where you should be playing your games, man." Like, it's just
Yeah.
I know it's different. Sporting rules are different in Ireland. I mean, you're in Switzerland now. Even the sporting rules there are probably different than what they are in Ireland. But I really hope that the success that Ireland has stays for a while. Because
I
it's the
think,
only thing to me that's the saving grace of rugby right now is competitiveness. We had a decade where one team ruled the roost
yeah,
with a ruthless iron claw to it.
yeah.
Did I love that era? Yeah, it was great. The All Blacks were amazing during that era, but did it help grow the game? Not
No,
really. Not really. Um,
no, I think you're right. And look, I mean, like the great thing about Ireland, I suppose, is like without a shadow of a doubt, they're the best organized um like outfit in union in world rugby. I would say South Africa has done an amazing job as well in
we
terms
went
of
from famine to feast. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Like I was at the game in DC where we played Wales for a 600 or for a 300,000 euro check, or no, 300,000 pound check because our rugby union was broke. Like,
yeah.
and we went from that to where we're at now, where we're actually making money.
Mm,
Ireland is making money despite the fact that you have 5.5 million people. You're
yeah.
profitable. Your rugby is, but it could be more. It
It could
could
be more,
be
yeah.
more. And I think it's like that delicate thing because there's so many unions that are struggling. England is struggling.
Yeah.
Italy is struggling. Wales, Scotland seems to be okay. New Zealand is really struggling.
Yeah,
Argentina, like, and you don't want to be that guy that says, "Oh, well, we're doing good, so we're gonna piss all over." No, it's like you've got to. The modesty has to go out the window at some point, in my opinion. And it does it suck? Is it classless at times? Of course it is, but it didn't hurt New Zealand when they did it.
yeah. Like, I mean, like one of the things that always baffled me is how New Zealand, like anytime you speak to AB's fan from over in New Zealand, they'll tell you like that it's really struggling. You're like, how is it really struggling? Like what could that team possibly be doing more than it has already? And like I I just don't get that. Like if they've been dominant for such a long time,
Yeah,
and they're still at the top table, So yeah,
it's weird for me because of my age. We're both in our 40s.
yep,
When people think that the All Blacks now compare to what they were 10 years ago, and I'm like, "Dude,
no,
it's not even close," and they're like, "Well, what do you mean?" I'm like, "Dude, the All Blacks 10 years ago, had you played that test in Ireland to start out the autumn, they would have put up 50 on you, man."
yeah,
Oh, yeah, that's how good they were. Like, they were
yeah,
that damn good. Like, I just I kinda I weep for it a bit. Obviously, I'm happy because I'm a Springbok supporter and a South African, but you just kind of wonder about it. Now, there is one last thing I wanted to bring up with you.
hmm
Okay, so it's this idea that we should expand the Six Nations, expand the Rugby Championship, and I know the reason why that isn't happening, and I don't think kids understand why that doesn't happen, and we both know what it is. It's because Romania and Georgia couldn't afford it for one,
yeah,
and two, despite how bad Italy can be or how bad Wales could be, Romania and Georgia would get destroyed. And it's, oh well, they beat a bad England team once.
Yeah.
Romania would get pummeled. Georgia would get pummeled in this competition. Would you agree with that? Would you say, hey, it might be?
No, no, it's a fact. No, they would. It's very different doing it in like a European Championship or even like a qualifier for a World Cup versus
Yeah.
you know, Six Nations. You know, like, and you're right. Like, it does come down to money. Italy bought into the thing. That's how they got in. They bought. They paid
Oh,
for it.
in '99, is that how it became the
Yeah,
Five
that's how it
Nations?
is.
Okay, I'm sure they had
So
to pay a pretty penny for it too. I'm sure,
yeah,
but
and they brought something to the table as well. You know, but you know, it's a very contentious issue because, like, over the years, you know, like Italy came from absolutely nowhere. Like, you have to understand that. Like, people are like, oh, Italy, you know, they've never really been great. Yeah, but they only really took up the sport in the last 20 years. Like,
yeah,
it's not like they ever had a history of rugby. You know, they may have had like amateur club level rugby in the country, but they never really had international aspirations at all. And even now, like, you can ask most Italians, and they don't really know anything about rugby. Like,
that's that's the funny thing is like if you ask, there's 5.5 million Irishmen. I'm willing to bet they know about rugby. If you go to Italy with the population of what I think they've got, like what 40,
it's
30,
probably more. It's
maybe
probably
that,
more.
you know what I mean? And maybe 5 million know what it is. And it's like
Yeah,
I don't think, like, especially Irish kids, they don't understand the gap between the two. Like, cuz they don't see it in Ireland. But I
yeah,
mean, even in England, the gap is massive between football and rugby. The gap, like, rugby is the second most popular by a lot. Like, it's not close. And it's something that does worry me about the game because if you think about it on the global standard, there's only like maybe one or two countries where rugby is the number one sport. It's
mm,
New Zealand, Papua New Guinea is big on league, the islands, but nobody lives there.
mm.
It's not the number one sport in any of the Six Nations countries.
No, no, it isn't.
I mean, in
Like,
Ireland, is Ireland soccer still probably the biggest sport?
it depends how you measure those things, and I've got into the weeds and with this argument a few times. It really is. If you look at, you know, participation, okay,
Yeah,
that's one metric. Okay,
yeah,
so, you know, and that encompasses, like, you know, you have a professional guy, he participates, and you've just a guy who, you know, who turns up at the weekend to play with his friends. That's also participation, and they're
yeah.
both equal. Okay, well, then you would say soccer is the number one sport in Ireland, in terms of
By
participation.
participation. Do you want to know an interesting fact?
Yeah,
It's the number one sport by participation in the United States too.
as well. Wow. Okay.
Youth soccer is massive here. Okay, so we have two rugby pitches in Denton. We have a old one and a new one. The new one is a rugby pitch and six soccer fields.
Okay.
Like, youth soccer is bigger than any youth sport here in America. That is the biggest youth sport in this country is soccer. Like, and not by a little, by like a lot. Um, it dies off as you get to the senior when you get into school because most schools it's not really I mean, it's a sport, but it's not considered a sport here. But because here
Yeah.
it's like basketball, baseball, football, that kind of thing. But like, yeah, I mean, and people don't believe that. And I'm like, that's why we're having another World Cup here, guys, because by participation, soccer is the most popular sport in this country.
Mm.
Not revenue wise, it's not even close. It's like the fifth or sixth biggest sport. But yeah,
That's that's where we get into the other category. So if you look at it in terms of like professional sport,
yeah,
rugby is the number one sport in Ireland. If you were to say, like,
via
by
revenue.
revenue, like, you know, by putting bums on seats in stadiums to watch games, you know, week after week, it is the number one sport, you know, and as an industry it is. But in terms of, if you include amateur sports, like you have like our own national sports like
Yeah,
hurling and Gaelic football, they would also be above rugby as well. And they, like, in fairness to, they would put like you, that Croke Park Stadium, like, that's 82,000. That gets filled.
every
Um,
time. Does it get filled
yeah,
every time they play.
yeah. Like when it comes to the latter stages of our national competitions, that gets filled, and that's an amateur sport. So that's 82,000 people at an amateur sport. That's pretty good, going. So yeah, like I suppose like to go back to your earlier point about like Six Nations and bringing teams in and out, but like this they went out on a limb and bring Italy into the competition,
Mhm.
and like Ireland sent coaches, like every union sent coaches to help them build up their union, build their youth infrastructure, and you know this generation that they have now that's actually punching above its weight and getting one decent result per year, which is good. You know,
Yeah,
um,
that's 20 years in the making. It took them
it's
20
20
years.
years in the making. Like
Yeah.
that's it took that long. People don't really realize that it really does take that long. This isn't a it's not an easy sport to get into at all. It's extremely technical, incredibly professional, and um, you need to. It takes time to build up that infrastructure. So
I think it's a crucial mistake that the United States is making is that they think they can just buy that, and it's like you can't. You have to plant the seeds. It has to be planted organically. But sports here don't grow organically. That's also the problem that I see with the USA hosting a Rugby World Cup because it's not an organic sport here. It's a novelty here, and um, but I think with the success that Ireland is having, it's a good thing because you're seeing. I mean, especially we're both on TikTok. The youth in Ireland is excited about rugby, and it's
yeah,
something that I didn't see in my. I mean, especially growing up on this side of the globe, and even you growing up, it wasn't nearly as exciting as it is now. It's no longer we're the big boys in the neighborhood. We now have a global imprint. The
yeah.
Irish, I mean, look, I'm in Texas wearing an Ireland jersey. The
Looks
imprint,
good on you too, man. Yeah,
what's up?
it looks good on you too. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's not bad. I know from my Safa followers, it's the wrong color green, but like for me, I got a Scotland jersey first just because I thought those looked so sick, and then my colleague Alan, who's from Dublin, he came here in the '80s on a track scholarship to a small college and married an American woman and stays here. The funny part is everybody talks how thick his accent is. Like yours is softened a lot. You can tell yours is softened a lot because you don't live there. But like
Yeah.
when I talk to people that are from there constantly, I'm like, Alan, you barely even have an accent to me. And he was like, yeah, I know. He's like, to you, because you talk to Irish people constantly,
Yeah.
barely have an accent. But to Americans, he's got a thick accent. And I'm like, it's barely there to me. But he's even, like I said, we're seeing the youth get excited. Alan's a soccer fan, like,
Mm.
Gaelic football fan. Gaelic, he just calls it Gaelic football, which
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I've watched it. It looks exciting as hell. Like I enjoy Gaelic football. It's better than that AFL crap in Australia. That's all I have to say. But
Yeah. Yeah.
you're
You know what
seeing you're
they
seeing
used to
the youth
do?
are excited. The youth are excited.
Yeah, like, I take your point. But just on the Gaelic football, they used to do this thing where it was called the oh, sorry, it was like I think it was called compromised rules or something, where
Yeah.
AFL teams and GAA teams, like Gaelic football teams, played against each other, but they just yeah. So they used to change like a couple of the rules, and the ball might be a slightly different shape, and the pitch would actually be oval
They
as
would
well,
use like a cricket pitch for it instead of a
something like that. Like so,
yeah.
they just like like it's the most violent games I've
Oh,
ever
that's
seen
great.
in
I
my
bet it
life.
was great.
If you look it up, man, my God, above in heaven, like they were, like they had to stop doing. They had to just stop doing. Okay, we can't do this anymore.
Dudes were getting hurt. People were just
No,
getting
we can't put this on TV. Like we can't do this anymore. It's not good. Like it really isn't good, because they would just be like, just beat the hell out of each other for
yeah.
like guys would be swinging digs. Like the Australians were like, I would always say the Australians were worse than we were, because they were kind of like coming on a holiday. It was like, so it's Ireland. You don't care, like if I get sent off or I get
Yeah,
what's
it's
going to
like I'm
happen.
on vacation anyway. It's like I don't yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to affect my day job, so who cares? But So they used to really, really beat the hell out of each other. But yeah, it's fun. I suppose like about the excitement level for rugby in Ireland at the moment is like it's massive. It really is massive, and you see all the social media stuff. It's just gone crazy. I mean, you see Off the Ball. Do you watch Off the Ball?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I follow quite a few. There's a few I don't follow, and I'm pretty vocal that I when I don't follow them.
Yeah,
But like even guys like that kid Tiernan, he was the original Leinster bias Tiernan. Now, like I had an initial TikTok account that got shut down right before the Rugby World Cup because I pissed off a lot of people. And when I got back on it, I reached out to him because he was one of those kids. And I was like, hey, let's break bread. I had him on my show here. We did an interview. And I realized that, like, he's like 17. And it's like, it's the thing that I still have to grasp with one time is when you say like 10 years ago to a 17-year-old, that's like 30 years ago to them. Like
yeah,
they don't see like they didn't see the time when Ireland was really no better than Scotland in the world scale of the thing. They were
yeah,
just kind of like, "Oh yeah, it's Ireland." Okay. They don't remember a time when they weren't looked at as one of the big dogs. And
yeah,
and it's fortunate for them because that's all they've got to grown up to see, but it's also like, hey, you don't understand the ebb and flow of this thing. You're gonna have a downtime at some point. Every team does.
yeah,
Um, you're gonna hit rock bottom. Every team does. I mean, unfortunately for Wales, it looks like their rock bottom, like they got weights on their ankles and they're not coming up anytime soon, unfortunately. But
yeah.
um,
I think
it,
I
it's
think they're only going one direction. I haven't seen any progress or
there's nothing positive to say about that team.
no.
There's nothing. There's no, and it's not like they've got kids in the pipeline coming up. No, you can look at their U20 team. It's not much better. Like
Yeah,
they're going to be like this for a while. This is going to probably be like I hate to say it right now, we're in year 2 of it. It might be a 4 or 5, 6 year thing for them. They're going to have to really, really, really dig themselves out of this. And I think with Ireland, you have a lot of aging guys. You're moving in the new guys. The new guys need experience. We got like guys like Sam Pendergrass, who's 21 years old.
mm,
This is going to be the guy who's going to be going to at least 2 World Cups,
yeah,
barring injury or anything. And you're gonna have that. We're gonna remember babyface Sam Pendergrass. We'll both be in our probably late 50s, early 60s, and we're gonna look at him and he's got gray hair, and we're gonna be like, man, I remember when he was a baby. Like it's just.
yeah. But I mean, I remember when Johnny Sexton came on the scene with
Dude,
his
he was a
brother
kid.
O'Carr.
He was a
Yeah, he was a kid.
kid.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Crap. I remember when Rory Best had hair.
No, you best said there. Do you remember Neil Best, his brother? I remember him. He was like he was built like a brick shithouse. He was a fantastic player, but like yeah, I mean, like this like all the talk now is about you know Prendergast v Crowley, and I mentioned it earlier on. It's more than likely always going to be both.
Yeah.
Because they're too good. You couldn't really like when Crowley came on tonight. He did have a little bit of an impact. He was pretty you know uh, intentful in what he was doing. There was a little bit of pace to what he was doing.
Yeah.
He didn't set it alight. He made 1 or 2 errors. Like he went for the line once and he was never going to get any support, and they turned it over in the 5 meter. But like, I mean, as you said, these guys are going to be around for a while.
Yeah.
I think people like the media stirs it up a lot and it completely like off the ball. That's like for me. These are people that I don't even class them as journalists. Like
Yeah.
like they just spit kind of clickbait every single day. Like they're like the spam in your folder.
I'm guilty of doing the same thing, so I can't really judge anybody. But I mean, like, for me, it's like, I guess because we're both older, we've seen this time and time and time
Again,
and time
yeah,
again. And it's like, look, Pat Lambie
yeah,
got hurt by CJ Stonder. We all know about the story. Dude, I thought Pat Lambie was going to be 100 caps.
Yeah,
Like, he was better than Mornay Stan to me. Like, I thought he was it, and then he got hurt, and that was it.
yeah.
It's you these people don't wanna look at, like, "Hey, man, something could happen to Pendergrass or Crowley, and that's it." Like, it sucks, and you've gotta deal with it, but having the fan bases go at each other is not helping this at
I
all.
know. Now, there is major, there's major friction between, I would say, like the Munster fan base and the Leinster fan base always.
It seems
You
like
know,
nobody likes Leinster.
no, nobody likes
Ulster,
Leinster.
Connacht,
That's just
nobody.
a fact.
Well, and then, like, even Alan, who's from Dublin, was telling me about, like, if you're from Dublin, nobody likes you. Like, it's just it's okay, if you've never been to New Zealand, I take it.
No, no.
So they call them Jaffas, just another fucking Aucklander. That's what they call people. Nobody in New Zealand likes people from Auckland. They think they're all, like, up nose up in the air dicks.
Yeah,
Same thing in America. Nobody likes anybody from New York or LA. I do. They're cool, but, like, it's kind of every country has, like, nobody likes anybody from London.
yeah.
I'm sure in I don't know what that equivalent would be in Switzerland, but, like, Germany, nobody likes anybody from Berlin. Berlin's stupid. Like, they're not really German people there, but it's kind of, it seems like there is a lot of hatred towards Leinster.
It's it, like it's been going on for like even longer than I've been watching rugby. Like, and that's a long. Like, I've been watching rugby since I think the '95 World Cup was the first World Cup I watched.
Mine
So
too. Mine too. From
yeah,
the Chesterfield in Brampton, Ontario. That was my introduction to the game. Yeah.
and even back then, like we had in Ireland, we had the All Ireland League, and it's still there now.
Yeah, yeah.
And all there was three teams from my city, Limerick, that were dominating it for about 10 years, right?
Mhm.
But they could hardly get one player on the Irish team. They couldn't like, and like if you go around the pubs in Limerick, there's the rugby pubs now. There's like various letters that were written to the IRFU over this from club members that and the replies that they had to give, because if it comes from a club, you have to reply. So
Jesus.
um, and they're posted up on the walls in the pub, where about certain players who were doing really well and they couldn't. And it's deep seated resentment is what it is, like, and apparently, like, that wasn't even the starting of it. Like, I've talked to some real old guys, and they're
It's
like,
always
oh,
been there. It's always been there.
it's always been there. Like, the saying is, if you're from Munster and you need to be twice as good as the Leinster guy to get on the team, and if you're from Limerick, you need to be three times as good. So just to get on the team.
Limerick is Connacht, right?
Oh, Limerick is Munster.
Okay, so Munster is Limerick and Galway? No,
Limerick and Cork.
and Cork. Okay, that Thomond Park is Limerick or Thomond Park is Cork?
Limerick. So
Okay,
yeah.
what's the one that's in the other
Musgrave Park, or
Musgrave Park? Okay, that's the one that I think Zara lives by, and then
okay,
Galloway is Connacht, right?
yeah, Galway is
Galway is
is
Connacht.
college. Yeah, they're developing.
Belfast is Ulster, and okay, it's for me. It's like because when you look at an Ireland map, it doesn't have it broken down like that. It just has the country, so it's like
It's tiny.
always trying to. And I've been told I'm not supposed to understand people from the south as much as I do people from the north, and I'm going to be completely honest with you. I prefer the Munster accent over the Leinster accent or the Ulster accent. I prefer it. It's thick, but it's not too thick. If you sound like Jimmy, it's really hilarious. In my opinion, he's a Newry kid, and his accent is hilarious to me.
Yeah, they're it can be. It can be. It takes a little while to get your ear used to it. Have you heard of these guys? There's a new rap group,
Oh,
Irish.
kneecap.
Yeah,
Yeah, those are West Belfast boys. You can tell. Yeah,
yeah.
it's we actually went and saw that in theaters here. Me and my wife went. There was like maybe one other person in the theater, and my wife had never even heard of them. I had heard of them because of TikTok, and like, um, it was one of those things that when I started meeting Irish people, it was something that I realized we could unite on, which is we really don't like the UK. Like, our historical reasons in South Africa, now I'm a US citizen, their historical reasons, and then Ireland taught me their historical reasons. It's like we all have a reason to not like it's like I've talked to many Six Nations fans. They're like, we could lose to every single team. We want to beat England every
That is the way we used to
single
look at it.
time. And I'm like, why? And they were like, because they deserve it. They deserve
Yeah.
it. So
Like when we when it was kind of back in the the bad old days for our for Ireland, it was you know like just put it up to England. If you can put it up to England, then at least that'll be one decent day out for us for the year. We'll usually, like, it always kind of tends to happen on St. Patrick's Day then as well, the away games. So if we're in London in Twickenham to play, it's usually St. Patrick's Day that or that weekend thereabouts that we're so you could end up with a really big weekend. You know what I mean? Like that could be
have you
just
ever been to one of those games at
yeah, I
Twickenham
have. Yeah,
for
yeah,
a
yeah,
St.
yeah.
Patty? Oh my god, I bet that is
Oh,
intense, man.
oh man, like yeah, but I mean, just to be sober enough to take in the match, like is like I'm talking about all the other stuff. The match is one
Oh,
thing, but
I'm sure walking into the wrong pub and everybody's wearing white when you walk in and you're like, "Okay, I'm gonna go to the one down the street."
well, it's never really been that kind of intense. It's never really been that type of a.
Not in a
Uh,
hooligan sense of it, it's never been
no,
like
no,
soccer hooligans, there's not fights outside the games and stuff,
no,
which
no,
is
like
funny
no,
which is funny because it's a
it's
ain't it strange how we don't have that really in rugby?
we don't no we don't have we've never had it. Like even
Because it's
the
on the field, it's not in the
like that's kind of what the like one of the great things about rugby and even in like the bad old days, like if you went back to like the 80s and 70s and stuff in Ireland, like when there was an actual war going on in the north of Ireland, the English team still came and played in Dublin, like so it was there wasn't like you have to remember, like their prime minister was under attack at the time. There was a group of people trying to take out their government, and they still came and played rugby in Dublin. So like they kind of got over things, but yeah, like I mean, these days people don't really understand, but like we absolutely we were like I mentioned it to you earlier on, like hearing "God Save the King" was like a red rag to a bull, for an Irishman, and especially when you're a few beers deep and you're in the pub and everybody's kind of, or you're on the way to a game or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
And,
It
you
just
know,
adds it's like throwing petrol on the fire
yeah,
basically with
like
already there. Yeah.
it never like it never kind of boiled over, but at the same time, it's not what it is now. Like it's quite friendly now. It's not there isn't really any issues between there's certainly no issues between the two teams. There never really has been, but like groups of fans, maybe there was, but at the same time, never boiled over. We're very, very lucky, So we kind of we get on very well with England, but we absolutely do not want to lose them ever. We want to beat them always.
I
It's
I kinda think at the end of the day that Ireland won the cultural war is what they won more than anything, is because you ask the typical millennial English kid, they're not proud of being English at all. You ask
yeah,
the typical 16, 17-year-old Irish kid, they are very, very proud of being Irish. Like, English kids don't wanna be there. Ireland kids, I think they wanna get out more because they wanna see the world, but it's not
mm,
like they're not, like, clawing to get out. They're not, "Oh, man, I can't wait till I turn 18 and I can move to England." Like, they're not saying that. Like, it's a lot of them are like, "I wanna stay here, this is my home. I wanna travel, but I'm Irish." The end. And,
yeah.
um,
And
I
it always strikes me everywhere I go in the world is the amount of Irish pubs that are around the place. I'm like,
it's yeah, it's
it's
hilarious, man. Yeah.
crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
how does that happen? Like, you're like, well, I know how it happens, but like, we must have this brand of this kind of brand that travels around the world. But like, since I've been living in Switzerland for 3 years, I'm about to move to Denmark, and I've looked up just the most cursory look at bars in Denmark, and there's about like 15 Irish bars in Copenhagen. And you're
Your
like
your cultural identity has been sold to the world, or at least an idea of it, and it's not a bad identity to have. It's not a there's nothing like these kids having to explain to them that like once upon a time Irish people couldn't get jobs in America. And they were like,
yeah,
"What do you mean?" I'm like, "You see the way they treat like Mexican immigrants here?" I'm like,
yeah,
"That was you guys here at one
yeah,
point." They're like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, dude, like how many Catholic presidents has the US had? 2. How many Irish presidents has the US had? 2. That's it. Like it's but when you go and play the All Blacks in Chicago later this year, the game is sold out.
yeah.
And it's going to be interesting for me because the last time I went to that, yes, I wore an All Blacks jersey. I don't know what I'm going to wear this time. I don't know if I'm going to wear an Ireland jersey with an SA rugby hat, or am I going to wear an All Blacks jersey with an Ireland rugby hat? Because it's like, for me, it's like I've got friends on both sides of the war now. And I guess the main thing I want to say about today's game, more than anything, there's a winner and there's a loser, but we as fans of the sport, we won today because we got a good 80-minute game of rugby. There
Yeah,
are no losers and the fans. We got good rugby today. So,
it was a good game,
so
decent game. Like yeah, you mentioned that about Chicago. Like, it's always been this thing in America there where anytime an Irish team plays, it's just you find out how many Irish people are there. Like it's a
yeah.
lot, and like we played Italy in the '94 World Cup in the soccer, and in
My
Giant
friend Alan
Stadium.
was at that game. My buddy Alan was at that game. Yeah.
Wow, in New Jersey, and
At the Meadowlands in New Jersey. Yeah. Yeah.
that was basically, from what I've been told. Now, obviously, the figures get exaggerated as the years go by, but what I've been told, it was at least 60% Irish people in the stadium. So, and it was a
That
big
was the
stadium.
most I think that was the most well-attended pool game not held by the host. Like,
Yeah.
that game sold and neither country was a host nation. Like, there
Mhm.
were a lot of people at that game. Obviously, Italians and Irish right next to New York City, yeah, you're gonna get that, but
You're gonna get it.
yeah, it's never a bad, like I said, it was a good day for rugby. But we're gonna go ahead and wrap this one up, Colin. I know it's getting to be the evening there because you are 9 hours ahead of me, 8 hours ahead. Nine, are you on German time there?
I'm on. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is it 10 p.m. there?
It's just coming up on 9.
9 p.m. Okay, so you're 7 hours ahead. So you're on European time. It's really weird being here in America because we have 5 time zones here, and Europe has one. Like, it's just like it's for me. It's just weird. South Africa, same thing. They have one time zone, and it's yeah here, and theirs doesn't change. You guys do. You guys fall back and spring forward, right?
Yeah, we do. We do the daylight saving time. Yeah,
South Africa does not do that. So they're either 7 hours ahead or 8 hours ahead. Right now, they're 8 hours ahead of me. So Um, but yeah, thank you for coming on, bro. It was fun.
fantastic. Lovely to chat.
Did you drink too much during the game?
Not really. I actually took it handy. I was like, I said, I'll just have one or two beers here now, and hopefully, I won't be too boisterous and loud and obnoxious when I get to speak to you later on. And you know, because I was thinking maybe there'll be English people and they'll be going, "Oh my God, what's this guy? What's this guy saying?"
Well, because of the time difference, they won't watch it live. They're gonna watch it all tomorrow, and they're gonna comment the shit out of it. Most of them are gonna be saying, "What the hell am I wearing? And why are you talking to this man?" So South Africans will be the worst. They're gonna be like, "What the fuck are you wearing, man?" And I'm like, "Dude, it's Six Nations. I gotta look. I'm gonna cheer for Ireland one more time in this tournament. It's gonna be when you play France because I hate France too. Um, I will cheer for Scotland 2 games when they play England and when they play France. France, and that's it. Like, I don't really. When I did my picks, I picked neutral. I'm a neutral guy, but I will never support England or France. Ever, ever, ever. It's just
That's deep seated. So, in terms of your calls for the Six Nations, like you, I mean, what do you think? Ireland for the Grand Slam, or I mean, this will be they're shooting for a three-peat now, which is the first time that's ever been done. So it would be history. It's like, I mean, it could happen, but I'm kind of always just a little bit, I'm like, oh, don't get too excited, guys, because we've got a World Cup in a couple of years' time, and if you're prioritizing everything right now, it's not gonna. But this is what Ireland does. But look, we kind of we love the Six Nations. The Six Nations is what keeps rugby going for us, so it's always a priority.
Grand
You know,
Slam is all the home Nate. It's all the UK plus Ireland, right? You beat all of those teams. You have no
win,
problem. You have no
win all
problem.
your games. You have to win all your games. Yeah,
That's a Grand Slam. Okay.
yeah.
Playing like you did today. When do you play France?
France is the second last game, and it's in Dublin. So
You're gonna need to get your shit in gear by
yeah,
that game because if you're not ready, doing what you did today, France could beat you. France would bury you early.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm looking at the schedule here. Yeah, okay, so you've got wow.
Scotland next.
So, oh, and this is oh yeah, because you get a gap, you get a break in between the third and fourth game. So you got Scotland at Scotland.
I think it is. Yeah, it
Okay,
is. Yeah,
I'm not worried about that. I think you should be fine. And then you get Wales, which should be honestly, look, I want to see some new faces for that game or guys that are under 10 caps. I want to see some new faces. This is how you build depth.
yeah,
Then you've got France. That's the A squad. You need to have your shit together. And then you close it out against Italy. And I mean, like, that does kind of worry me too, because if you've already beaten France, are you going to take your foot off the gas a little bit, or are you going to just fucking close it out? I
No, they
no,
won't.
no.
If they beat France, they certainly won't take the foot off the gas.
Yeah.
Like that's not in this team. But one thing that is like you mentioned it, like send out the B guys against Wales. For some reason, Ireland just does not do that. They never do it.
Look, man, at the end of the day, that's what cost you the World Cup, in my
It's what
opinion.
cost it the World Cup. One
Because
hundred
by
percent.
the time you made it to the quarterfinal, your guys were gassed. You were
100%
gassed.
fact. It's a fact. It's a fact.
You
Like they
you would
played
have
that game
you would have
against
still
South
put up
Africa.
70 on Romania with your B squad, but you played your A squad against Romania and Tonga. I mean, like, I got it. Like, Tonga, they beat the shit out of us, man. Tonga beat the shit out of us when they played it, because that's their big boys. That's what they do. But,
Yeah.
like, I picked you guys to make the final in 2023. And then when you lost it to New Zealand, it was kind of the debate back and forth. And then I went back and really looked at the tournament as a whole and was like, you didn't rest your guys. You played the A team every game, and
Every
you've
single
got
game.
you've got
Unbelievable.
to rest those guys. And it's like
It's like
South Africa won a World Cup without their starting hooker. He blew
yeah.
his knee in the pool game, dude, like in a practice at pool. But like you're gonna have to do that. And I don't know if that was an Andy Farrell thing, but
Oh,
like
the book stops with him. In my like, I love Andy Farrell. I love Andy Farrell, but that's the criticism that has to be leveled at him, and I'm sure it was leveled at him. But we need to see something different because, like, I mean, if you looked at it, I mean, that game against South Africa in the pools, that was absolutely
that was
like,
trench warfare. That was trench
oh,
warfare.
that
That
was
was
one
a
of the
battle in the dirtiest of places. Yeah.
that was one of the best tests I've ever seen. Like that was unbelievable.
Low
Like,
scoring as hell, but it was not. It was a battle in the
yeah,
trenches. That was a pool game for the ages, right there, man. I
yeah,
I loved it. I
yeah.
loved it.
Absolutely, but to say that you're going to just turn up a couple of days later and be like, "Oh, you were just going to play the same guys," even if they didn't have like if they weren't like battered and bruised, which they were, um, uh, your emotional levels are just going to be, you're going to be drained. Like,
Yeah.
you're just, I'm down here, guys. I need to relax. So yeah, that's their big issue. If they get over that, maybe then we could have a decent cycle. But yeah, it's about getting, choosing those games. Like we shot ourselves. We saw Tonga. We were like, these are big guys. We need to play our A team. No, you don't. You just need like, because everybody on the squad, they're all well able to take some contact. Like, do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? They're all big guys. They can handle it. You
All you
just
gotta
need.
do is make it through their first 15. When they bring their bench on, they're done because their bench is not good enough. Like, yeah, and that's look, 2007 Rugby World Cup, that was when I fell in love. I have a Tonga flag on my wall behind me. I fell in love with the Tonga team at that World Cup when they it took South Africa bringing their starters in off the bench to beat Tonga had the lead in that game, and
Yeah,
that was the difference maker. It was when the bench came. Shit, Tonga was a bounce away from beating England in 2007. That would have been historical, and they don't look. Look. I visited Tonga. Their rugby football union office is the size of the room I'm sitting in right now. Like they
yeah.
are poor, man. Like that.
Oh, sure.
But that is also the country where, believe it or not, you have the highest likelihood of being a professional athlete.
They just have good genes.
Well, no, because there's nobody there, and most of the people that leave, they leave to play rugby. You know,
Okay.
it's common there. So, but yeah, we'll have to get you on because I'll tell you what I want to talk about if I bring you back on again.
Hmm.
I want to talk about the Joe Schmidt legacy.
Oh, I could. That's big into the weeds now. That we're in the weeds there. That's the weeds.
That'll be a good one, man, because I really I have a lot of respect for Joe Schmidt, and I'm old enough to remember the team prior to Joe
Yeah.
and what they were at the end. And I mean, we could talk about that for like an hour easily, and I'd love to have
Hmm.
you back on here because it's not a lot of guys on here that remember '95, and I do, and you
Yeah.
do. So,
I
uh,
remember when Christian Cullen joined.
oof,
Do you remember him? Oh my God, the
yeah.
Taranaki Express. When he joined Munster, we were like, we got the shock of our lives. We're like, what? The best fullback in the world is joining our team. We're like, what's going on? He
Do
had,
you remember when Jonah Lomu signed with the Blues with Cardiff?
that would have been the Southern Hemisphere. We wouldn't have been too much
Yeah,
exposed to it at the
yeah,
time, but
yeah.
like in terms of club rugby. But
No, I'm talking about he signed with Cardiff. Jonah Lomu played with Cardiff for a while.
all right, did he? What?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
forgot that.
That was the first time I was able to watch him live on television because they showed the game. Yeah, he played for Cardiff for like half a season. Yeah. That was also the year that the first time I heard Jonah Lomu on North American television for one reason and one reason alone. Jerry Jones, the owner of the Dallas Cowboys, offered Jonah Lomu a tryout.
Yeah,
And I
the
was
boy.
like, oh, he would have made it. Yeah, he would have fucking made it. He was six foot five, dude. Like that guy was fucking massive, man. Um, but yeah, we'll have you on again soon, man. Thank you for coming out, dude. I appreciate you, Colin. You were my last guest before the app went dark for what we thought was going to be forever. It ended up being about 16 hours. And I will tell you this: it's still not the same. There's still a lot of really funky stuff about it for us in America that you guys don't get. Ours is really bad. It's the FYP pages are real bad still here. So
You reckon they mess with the algorithm a little bit?
I think they moved it to a server for Meta as opposed to the independent instead of Oracle. And the reason I say this is because they're all connected. Like Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok are all connected now. You can disconnect them, which is what I've done. But the algorithm, it used to be a lot of really dumb, like you're gonna think I like to watch like animals fart, I guess. Like dumb videos and like stuff with the universe. If I get on my FYP right now, I can guarantee you 4 of the first 5 videos are going to be about American politics.
I'm getting an awful lot of that right now as well, and I've never interacted with anything like that whatsoever.
It's
And I'm
because they
just like,
switch servers. It's because they switch servers, man. It's we're in a weird time here in America. I do worry a bit, but look, I've lived around the world. I've
Can
seen.
you go back to South Africa?
Um, I mean, I definitely wouldn't go back to Canada just because I couldn't like what I have here, the life I have. Like, I own a car, I live in a house. Like, I couldn't
Yeah,
afford that in Canada.
okay,
I mean, honestly, I mean, I'm a U.S. citizen. I have a U.S. passport. I do love this country a lot. Is
yeah,
it perfect? No, by no means is it perfect, but like it allows me to have the things I want here at middle
okay,
class. I'm not rich. I'm a middle like me and my wife are middle class, like 100 our wages together is middle class. We're not wealthy at all, but um I'd ask you, but you live in Switzerland where everything was fucking expensive, dude. I remember buying deodorant there. It was like $12 for a stick of deodorant, man.
yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm leaving, like, but it's nice. If you're really if you're
Well,
doing well, it's nice. But like at the same time, I don't. I never went skiing or anything like that because I always well one I thought okay I'm going to break my neck so I'm not going to do that like I'm going to break I'm really going to end up in hospital if I do something like that, and two it's bloody expensive, it's ridiculously expensive. You're
I've never
talking
been skiing either, man. Never.
like you drop a couple of grand for a weekend. Like you might have to hire, like unless you buy the stuff. But if you buy your skis and whatever, but nobody does that. You rent it all out, and it's going to cost you like 600 to 700 euro to do. Just for a weekend. You're like,
Yeah, yeah.
when
And
people
it's
do that.
funny, you're moving to Denmark, which is just as expensive, but not nearly as expensive as Switzerland. It's and then I've been told that Ireland is just as bad. So,
Oh,
um,
Ireland is really, really a mess at the moment. It is a mess. I don't recognize it from the country I kind of grew up in. But
is it mass immigration?
there's a lot of that.
Yeah,
It's just because, like like I mean, I went to school, I went to college, I got a degree, and got some experience, and you kind of expected, okay, well, you put in that work, you're going to get something for it. And we
yeah.
did get something for it, but the wages are not quite good enough to match the level of inflation. So
It's the same
uh,
here in the US, man. Like we both have college educations and we're not anything more than like lower middle class, dude. It's
yeah,
yeah, it's the same thing. But we'll have you on again soon. Thank you for coming on, man. Cheers, dude. Appreciate you for coming on. Thank you guys for watching.
cheers.